Superficial friendships and friendships that we treat as transactional naturally breed confusion. When it comes to what authentic validation is, what it looks like, feels like, sounds like, focusing on how many people like us and what they can give us is ultimately a search for confirmation of our own value as a person, of our worthiness. In other words, it is validation seeking. But this type of validation, which is rooted in how others perceive us because of what we have, can never be a conduit for true connection, because it doesn't actually reflect who we are. Validation is a tricky subject, especially when it comes to relationships. We all have a subconscious need to hear, "Hey, you're moving in the right direction, keep going," or "That's wrong, time to course correct." We're all hoping for that loving mirror that will reflect what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. We all have a drive to know our goodness, to know, really know, that we are inherently worthy of love. There's nothing wrong with this need. It's what I would call enlightened or authentic validation seeking. It does matter that those with whom we're closest, be a friend, a parent, a lover, or a mentor, validate our fundamental worthiness. When they do, when they offer us enlightened, authentic validation, we experience deep connection. We hear, feel, and see our goodness reflected back to us. If they don't or can't, they're not in a place where they can hold space for sacred friendship. They're not available to be the botanist to our benevolence, our goodness. Ultimately, though, enlightened, authentic validation has to come mostly from within. It's something you offer to yourself, an acceptance and approval of who you are as you are. It's owning your fundamental worthiness. For most of us, our primary source of validation is not ourselves, though. It's others. Things get sticky and tricky here, not only because we're not secure with ourselves, but also because we totally misunderstand what should secure the approval of others. This is the shadow side of validation. The things we think make us worthy, that's where we get it wrong. We seek validation, both internally and externally, through so many avenues that will never lead us to the truth of our innate goodness and worthiness. Through good grades, people-pleasing, our appearance, the signs of status we gather around us, our jobs, cars, homes, our colonized, indoctrinated minds mistake stuff, the worldly, the material, which is inherently flawed, for a direct correlation with or direct mirror of someone's innate benevolence, innate goodness. But the validation you get from what you have, what you look like, what you drive, where you live, where you went to school, will never really be enough. It's a counterfeit of happiness, only masquerading as the real deal, because it doesn't come from within. It's oriented toward the approval of others. And because in our future tripping status-obsessed more and more culture, the goalposts are always moving. One of the most common ways we now find relief for our cravings for validation or approval is through social media. Social media can be a tool for connection, sure, but it could also absolutely become toxic, a platform for seeking validation and praise instead of connection. In that way, sadly, it mimics real life quite well. Most of us use our phones and scroll through social media with reckless abandon, no limits at all. How many of you have tried to push your phone away to get work done, or even announced that you were taking a social media break, only to slowly pull the device back into your hands for just one more fix? Is it an addiction? If not, it's something like it. Meanwhile, we're being sold more stuff on our devices and getting our attention and sense of connection from people we either don't actually know in real life, or to whom we're showing a very limited, very curated portrait of ourselves, and vice versa. It feels so good to post a picture and see those fire emojis come flowing in, or post a political statement and hear the echo chamber tell you how righteous you are. To hit refresh every millisecond. Dr. Wuzerman, the neuroscientist who helped us understand the relationship between loneliness and addiction, also explained to me that social media activates the striatum, the brain's reward hub. According to her, social media makes us think we're connected when we're really not, by stimulating parts of the brain that are aroused by social rewards. Social media is extremely successful at securing our engagement via highly rewarding stimuli, attractive visuals, short bursts of information, etc. But it's less intrinsically rewarding than one-to-one social connection that's not mediated by a screen. As she put it, quote, "It's kind of like eating carbs. You eat a piece of Wonder Bread and it tastes delicious and you feel a little energized from it, but then comes a crash. It's not sustainable, it's not replenishing, it's not nourishing." The unfortunate truth is that spending time on social media, which is changing and evolving all the time, throws us into a spin cycle of what we need, of what we don't have, of not feeling enough. It reinforces the flawed notion that the more we have, the happier we are. Greed culture depends on our addiction to this kind of validation. When you live by the untruth that the right stuff will make you feel good, the right clothes, the right car, the right education, the right address, all the things you don't have become all the evidence you need every day to buy into the lie that you don't belong, aren't good enough. So you buy more, achieve more. But society says you never have enough, therefore you never be enough. In Buddhism, this kind of cycle is simply called suffering. Suffering is all-encompassing. If you live in a way where what you have dictates your self-worth, then you're always going to be far from experiencing true connection to people. The simplest way to ease the grip on the need for enlightened validation is to upgrade your code of ethics. I mean, calling it simple isn't really fair because what I'm talking about is lifelong work. But I don't think what I'm talking about is hard to understand. It's not complicated in that way, it's simple. If you live by a higher code of ethics or a higher code of morality, meaning you're constantly kind to other people, you're kind to yourself, you take care of other people, you practice compassion, and if you can't help others, you're at least not hurting them. If you're doing what I call the basics, if you have this baseline of morality, then your mind is more relaxed because you're not overthinking the things that you did wrong, the things that you didn't do or should have done instead. The need for affirmation of your own worthiness isn't as voracious because you operate in a state of knowing you've been acting with love and compassion. Once the mind is more relaxed, you have access to the true nature of the mind, which is innately benevolent. As I said, that's the work of a lifetime. Even while we're doing that work, though, we still need to strive to be in touch with enlightened validation and to do our best to resist the shadow side of validation. The surprise is that the best way to really familiarize yourself with enlightened validation is to offer it to others.